welcome back to the Isn't That Rich podcast. I'm your host, Jill Franks, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Ashley McVicker, of course. And today we have a very important topic that affects so many in our community. It's all about elder fraud today.
Yes, and we see this a lot at the bank, Jill, and it's definitely a growing concern. So I'm excited to hear what our guest has to share today.
So at the bank, if we encounter elder fraud, this is the main person that we contact to go and follow up with this. Yes. So I'm excited to invite our guest today on. It's Kimberly O'Daniel from Shawnee Health is here to share her expertise on adult protective services and provide valuable insights on how to recognize and prevent elder fraud. Kimberly is the program director for adult protective services for Shawnee Health. She oversees 10 staff for the southern 13 counties who investigate abuse, neglect, and exploitation, as well as a grant for the Attorney General's Office for AG scams and frauds. Kimberly, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I know this is a very hard topic, but it's one that we really need to spread the word about.
Absolutely.
Okay, Kimberly, I am really excited to learn about adult protective services and why they are so crucial. So, can you explain to us what adult protection services are?
So adult protective services covers a wide range. We see adults 18 to 59 with disabilities, as well as 60 and over on the aging waiver. Now, Shawnee Health is very unique because we also have the grant through the Attorney General's Office. And so we investigate fraud and scam on a small scale. So those storm chasers, those, home improvement scams, and even the, like when you go and sell a car and you have those car scams that happen. Yeah. But we also investigate the larger scams where there's the money mules and the other phishing scams that are out there.
Yeah, and we do, like we said, see so much of that. Can you talk a little bit about the grant and what goes on with that? Because I feel like, a lot of communities have, like what you said, the protective services, but the grant covers.
So for the southern 13 counties, Shawnee Health does both adult protective services and the Attorney General's grant. So for our AG grant, we investigate all of the scam and frauds.
Okay.
And we have 2 staff that is their sole purpose. Now, one of them, that is all she does. The other one does both APS and the Attorney General. So we make sure that she has cases that are closer to her area, whereas the other one will cover more of the other counties we cover all southern 13 counties.
Wow.
It's a huge service area with minimal supports. We have few resources in this area, as everybody knows.
Yeah, that's for sure. Another question I have is, how does Shawnee Alliance collaborate with APS to support vulnerable adults?
So we are one umbrella. I know that Shawnee Health is Shawnee Alliance. So we have, on our 50th anniversary last year, we have collaborated under one corporate name. And so we are Shawnee Health. We still answer to Shawnee Alliance, and we have all of the same social services for our coverage area. Adult Protective Services wants to mitigate risk. We want to do what the client wants because they are client-centered services. So that means if the client is alert and oriented, means they're able to make their own decisions, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
We will do what the client wants. Sometimes we work outside the box to come up with unique ways to solve those issues because we do have a lack of resources in this area.
Yeah. Definitely.
Why are APS so crucial for the well-being of the elderly and other vulnerable populations?
Adult Protective Services, we want to help. We are not there to remove individuals. What we want to do is help mitigate that risk. So we want to see, is this actually happening? Is it something you want to help resolve? We know that a lot of times it is family members or a loved one of some other sort, whether it be a homemaker or a caregiver, that may be the perpetrator of the abuse. If they want us to help resolve those things in a manner that satisfies them, then that's all we want to do. We're not going to do anything against the client's wishes. And that is really what is a struggle because not everybody wants to resolve that abuse because they don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want somebody to not come and be there. They don't want to upset that family member. They don't want to upset somebody because they don't want what that person wants. So we just try to really help them and just know that we're an advocate for them and we're going to be there for them. We will, if they want to pursue pressing charges, we will help them make that call to law enforcement. If they want to, find other healthcare providers or get something else resolved, we're going to be that advocate and that support person. So we are their cheerleader. We are that person that goes in and we dig deep and will help resolve whatever needs to be, fix that risk of that's putting them at harm.
I think it's so crazy because most oftentimes, like you kind of mentioned, the people closest are the ones doing the abuse.
Yes.
And so for somebody to be able to confront them and put a stop to that abuse, you just really do need an advocate or somebody on your side to kind of be that go-between person. Because I can imagine people I have in my life, and if they were being taken advantage of, I don't think they would ever speak up because they, like you said, wouldn't want to ruffle feathers or
they don't want to be left or be alone.
Be alone, that fear.
Especially if they are older. Right.
And sometimes if you're looking at someone that has a disability, it could be that's their only caregiver. So then how do you help find another caregiver? How do you help figure out services for them? So a lot of times we know the way and the path to get those services and to help find other avenues for that individual. So we just want to be that gateway to helping resolve those issues. It's not always the same for every case. And so we really lean on each other. We're a very tight-knit group. And so, every case is extremely unique. Right. Not every case is the same and people don't want to handle things the same way.
No.
At what point would someone tell you no, that they don't want help? I'm sure that's happened before. They just basically tell you like, leave.
Yes.
Leave and you have to leave.
Yes.
And like you
Gotcha.
said, they have the right to do that.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
We see that sometimes on day one, knock at the door one. Sometimes you're 6 months in and you're helping them resolve these issues and they're like, I'm done now. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. And so, we're very mindful and respectful. We give them all the information on if something else happens, please call us. We just want to help. We're not there to do anything that they don't want to do. And that's hard for people that call us because they want us to get in and just take that individual out of that situation. Yeah. And we don't have the right to do that. We just want to give them the guidance that they need to make a better choice or to see that there is another option out there.
Do you kind of have a grace? I want to call it like a grace period maybe as to where, let's say Jill was being abused and I called you to come help her. And then she said, bye. And then 6 months later, I was like, something is going terribly wrong with Jill. Can you come back? Are you allowed to come back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We see people sometimes numerous times. Sometimes we see them one time and we never have another case on them again. There are times where it takes more than one call before somebody wants that help, that they realize, okay, these people are legit. They really want to help us. So we are very understanding that sometimes we get the door shut that first time and, we're open to going back. We can't investigate the same allegation, but if it's something else is going on, we absolutely can go back and see what's going on. Because we know that just because one thing is going on, because you've had this check exploited, you may have another one exploited. So this one can be
a difference.
Yes.
Kind of like when it opens a new investigation,
Yes.
that's when you can maybe come back.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Interesting. So I want to get into how you actually recognize when when this is taking place, because we have so many people come into the bank and we know our customers and we know their personalities and we can recognize pretty quickly. But not everybody can see that. So I would love to talk about how you recognize or how people can recognize when this is taking place?
So abuse happens on so many different levels. So we investigate not just financial exploitation. We investigate physical abuse, passive neglect, financial exploitation, obviously, confinement. So if somebody's not getting their mail, if they're not allowed to have access to a telephone, just basic necessities that they're entitled to and have the right to, we investigate those things. And you hear those things from customers from time to time. Well, I'm not getting this. They're not allowing me to have this. Those are things that can be reported, and we can absolutely go and make sure that sometimes we have to be that bad guy and say, look, they have the right to have this information. Make sure that they're getting these things taken care of. We also look at, unfortunately, sexual abuse does happen. That is one of the fewer things that we see, thankfully. We also see, like I said, passive neglect. So somebody's not getting the care that they need, whether they've been in the hospital and maybe they have a caregiver that just doesn't understand everything that they need, or they just don't understand how to do some of those things. So we're able to get in there and take care of that. Willful deprivation is very similar to passive neglect, but the key to that is that they are willfully depriving them of health care, from medications, from just their basic necessities. So they're doing it on purpose. That one's pretty hard to handle at times. Yeah. Abandonment is a newer allegation over the last few years. Illinois added that to our list of investigative measures that we look at. And, you know, those are times where people are in situations, they have a caregiver and that caregiver just leaves and doesn't have another plan for them. They'll dump them at a hospital, they'll leave them somewhere else, and they're not responsive to phone calls and those types of things. But what we see is, just like with any of the other smaller branches, you know your customers. You hear these things because they know you and they trust you. And that is so valuable to us because they know somebody and they trust somebody to tell them what's going on. Right. And that's where we can come in and help, is that once you guys hear the information, we're able to get that call and go and assist in the ways that we're able to just kind of open doors and help them on all the avenues that may be happening.
Yeah. One thing that we see a lot is telemarketing scams. A lot of times elderly people will answer the phone and they will think it's their banker or
think it's us,
or grandson on the phone who's needing money in a different country or whatever it is. Yes. What kind of situations are you seeing a lot of in our area?
So we have the grandparent scam that goes around quite often, and that has actually taken a twist as of late because of the AI technology. And so they will take some Facebook photo or other social media photo of that grandchild, and they will manipulate it to where they think that that child is talking. And as we age, our vision is not what it was when we were younger. So you're not as keen to pick up on those cues that the mouth isn't talking at the same rate as, you know, the actual words that are being spoken. And so they play on those things. And, you know, my own grandmother was a call of a grandparent scam. And she said just enough to get enough information. And she goes, I don't think this is you. And she hung up on them. So thankfully she was able to just pick up enough cues by the phone and say, I'm not falling for it. Yeah. And so she was able to save herself from money being taken from her. Right. But we are seeing, you know, newer technologies used in various ways to scam people out of money. We have the lovelorn scam where they're, you know, finding somebody because they're lonely and they want somebody to pay attention to them. And so they get this, you know, distant love person, whether it be some general in the military that's retiring and needing help moving. Or we had one where, you know, she was from another state and needed money to relocate. And then it was money for a plane ticket. And then there was money for other packing materials. And so just continuing to find reasons to have money sent to them. We have had celebrities needing money.
Wow.
Well, think about it right now, though. I mean, I think about like during the election year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people campaigning and saying, you know, vote for whoever, support this campaign.
Right.
That could definitely be a telemarketing fraud.
Oh, yes,
for
we
sure.
had Angelina Jolie was needing money. We had one little lady that Tim McGraw was going to leave his wife.
Oh my goodness.
Not fake.
Let's not do that to
He
Faith.
needed some money, so you know, we laugh about it, but when you're very lonely, that's when you're most vulnerable.
Right.
And if you don't have people checking on you and you don't have family around, then that's when you're most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so that's where, you know, there's a lot of services that are here for the seniors. And, you know, we just want to make sure that they're protected.
Yeah. Have you seen The Tinder Swindler? Have you watched that show?
have not.
Okay. This guy is doing this to women. So there's lonely women out there, and they will go online and they'll develop this relationship. They'll talk on the phone. They'll have a real relationship online. They'll go and fly there. They'll spend a few months and trips together, and they'll be living this lavish life. And then later on, all of a sudden he needs this big amount of money, and she realizes that it's a scam, and he'll take all of her money, drain her bank accounts, and move on to the next. This was happening over and over and over. And it blows my mind, but it's out there, and people do just prey on that vulnerability and that loneliness.
Yeah.
It's
Your
so
emotions
sad.
are like the biggest thing that play into fraud.
And we see it all the time at the bank. People will come in and deep in their heart know that they're sending this cashier's check to somebody.
Yeah. It's love and fear is what
Yes.
people usually
And they
prowl
don't
on.
understand they're being used as a money mule.
Yeah.
To where it's going to these bigger scams, these
Explain that money mule. I've never heard that before.
So a money mule is, so you're sending money, you're basically the mule, you're sending the money along, and it's going to these bigger bad actors. So you're sending money to essentially drug cartels. You're sending it to, you know, human trafficking rings. And so the attorney general can prosecute those money mules if you're aware of what you're doing and you're told this is a scam, you continue to send money, you can be prosecuted.
No
Oh
way.
my gosh.
So you could actually...
You're the one being scammed, but then if you know what's going on, you can be prosecuted. Continue
it's
to
where you, if you don't stop and you continue, you could end up being prosecuted and part of that ring.
Wow.
Have you ever seen someone? Have you ever seen that happen?
We had one where it was not our area's AG, but it was another area who was working on that case, and somebody in our area was sending money, knew they were sending money, and they were threatened that if you don't stop, you are going to be prosecuted. And so that is something that it happens here. We know that there's more of these things going on than what gets reported.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Or what we can catch. I mean,
Yes.
you know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
people that are trying to help and protect. There's no way we can catch it all. Oh, you mentioned when we were talking before about like lottery scams and things like that. That's happening a lot over here that we see.
The gift card scam
Okay.
is huge too. So the online, you're talking to people, or you get text messages from random people and they need money, but they don't want you to send money. They want you to send the gift card codes. So Apple cards, or
Apple's a big one.
yes,
The biggest one.
Amazon cards. So they want you to send these codes off these cards. So then you're not technically sending money, but you are buying all these gift cards and sending all these codes. So we have that one going on with several clients right now in this area.
I feel like we hear that one a lot at the bank. Like our new accounts reps always have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard because it's like the money's gone. Like it's on gift cards
already
now. So we
spent.
can't really do.
There's no way
And that's
for
why they
us
do
to
that, because you
stop.
can't get it back.
Just like whenever we see financial exploitation and they go to the ATM, it's hard for us to track those bills and where
Yeah.
the cash has gone. We can see somebody at an ATM that's not the client or knows how to use an ATM, getting money from it, and then we can't track it because we can't track those numbers. We don't have those serial numbers on those bills to be able to track it. And so it's hard for us as investigators to track that part. I love a financial exploitation case because there's usually a money trail.
Yeah.
There's a paper trail that you can follow. Not all of my investigators like digging through those records, but it's so crucial because you've got to go line by line. Just as you see it at the bank, as it's coming out, you can see that, well, this is unusual or this is different. And, you know, those red flags are going off that, hey, they don't typically go to these stores or they don't have internet purchases. So those are things that, you know, as you're on the other side seeing it, you're able to flag it and say, hey, this is unusual activity and maybe something is going on. And that's where I know you guys are talking to your customers and trying to find out what's going on.
Right.
That's what I was going to say. I'm going to plug the bank, a community bank right now, just because like you should have a relationship with your banker. I feel like people don't think that they need one or they want to do everything online, and it's okay to do things online. I love doing stuff online, but I would love if I was in a situation where my banker noticed like something was going on and could go get me the help that I actually needed and I didn't know I needed it.
I know a lot of people think their banks are trying to be nosy or, you know, monitor their spending. But when we see a transaction that's just completely out of your behavior, it's on your behalf. It's not like we're trying to
Be like, why'd you
be
do
nosy.
this?
It's really, we're really trying to help and protect you. There was a instance not too long ago where, you know, fraudsters start small and this person was seeing like $5 transactions or transfers happening at first. So they thought it was just, you know, another purchase they made or their husband made or whatever. And then all of a sudden it started to get a little bigger and it was going to the same place. So it didn't feel unusual because they had already made transactions to that place. And then it over $50,000 ended up taking place in fraud because of this. So it started small and just got so big over time. So it's so important to pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, even whenever you have like people in your home, whether it's a grandchild or it's a homemaker or anybody else that's, you know, you have unusual activity, like you don't typically have like the cash apps and you're starting to see money going to those types of things whenever you have a flip phone, you know, why are we having these things going on?
Right.
So just kind of connecting the dots. Is this something that's a legit purchase? Did you okay this? Those are things that you can help protect an individual from starting small and losing more. You know, we have seen that several times where they're like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned family members, and I'd love to talk a little bit about what you do to stop that from happening. Like if a family member is taking advantage or your power of attorney is taking advantage, like what do people do? I wouldn't even know.
So
where do you begin?
Power of attorneys are written in a few different ways. So you can have them upon signature where it's active, or if a doctor says it needs to be enacted at this point in time. So you're at a point where you can't make decisions for yourself. So as individuals who on the financial side or even on the healthcare side, we have to really look at those papers and see, well, when are they no longer able to make their own decisions? So we want to see those papers, because if they're telling us that it exists, but then they never produce it, then you have to assume that it doesn't exist. And so we really need to make sure that we're paying attention to those forms and seeing, well, yes, but this isn't enacted until a doctor says that they're not able to make decisions or they're incapacitated. And just because they're incapacitated because they have to have a surgery or something medically is going on, if they regain their ability to make decisions, then
That goes away.
Exactly. So you have to really pay attention to those forms. And a lot of people think, well, I'm their power of attorney. They signed it and this is, well, let's look at it. Let's educate each other on when is this active? When is it good?
That makes so much sense. So a doctor does have to say.
In certain situations. Now, some of them are written in a way that upon signature, they are automatically. So you just have to really look at which box is marked and finding out what they want.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a power of attorney can be revoked no matter what a mental status is for healthcare. Now, of property, that one takes other measures, but for the most part, you know, if you have someone that is your power of attorney for healthcare and you decide that you don't want them to be anymore, you can revoke it at any time.
You can. That's good to know too.
What other frauds are you seeing from?
Let's see. We talked about the love scams.
Love scams.
We've
Lottery.
The lottery. We've talked about the gift card scams. Those weather storm chasers that come through the area and say, I'm going to do this work. And then they never come back and finish it because you paid them up front.
And we've been seeing a lot of storms and a lot
this
of
is the craziest summer.
I've never heard of this. What is this?
Okay, yeah. Tell us about the door-to-door people that you were talking about.
Live under a
earlier.
rock, apparently.
Yeah.
So we have the door-to-door scammers that come
Yes.
through the area. So basically, whenever you have they're the storm chaser ones. So you end up with storm damage, or, oh, this tree looks like it needs to be cut down, or, hey, your gutters needs cleaned out. And they pry on people that are alone and maybe not able to do the work themselves. And then they get paid up front and then they never come back. One of my neighbors, when I lived in town, she fell victim to one of these scams. They came in to do the work, but not only did they take her money, but they also got in her house and stole her medication.
You're kidding me.
So she was devastated. She was just the kindest of people and never thought that somebody would try to defraud her and violate the trust that she gave them.
How violated would you feel if somebody came into your house, stole all your medications, and I wouldn't trust anybody after that. You just I couldn't.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
So those are very common, especially when there's severe storms that come through and just, the tornadoes and things like that come through our area, and, devastation already, because you're already, loss is, a huge emotional tear. And then you have somebody that's claiming to help you, and then they just steal more from you, and they just take that opportunity to just prey on your vulnerabilities.
Yeah. I have to tell a story about Jared, and Jared, you might kill me for telling this story, but the solar fraud right now is a big thing. It was on the news the other night, but Jared Gravatt, he comes to work a couple weeks ago and he is distraught. He said there was a solar guy that came up and said, Ameren's increasing or doubling our power bill next
By
year
40%.
By 40%. Yeah.
So you need to get solar right now. It's subsidized.
So you should sign up for solar. But I'm sure it was a fraudster. And Ashley's like, Jared, you're so gullible.
I am. So, and I said, let's call Ameren. So we call Ameren. I actually have a video of this. It's hilarious. He called him and he's like, I'm just needing to know if the bill's going up. And this lady was like, no, we're under contract. Absolutely not. And those people are going around and frauding. And it was so funny. She's this professional woman and she was fed up with it on the phone. And then Jared goes, well, I was going to have to ask my boss for a raise, and winked. And they were giggling on the phone. It was really funny. But yeah, it happens to everybody.
Absolutely.
I don't answer the door, so I'm not going to get
in my neighborhood the other night. And so we were able to, we have a very small subdivision. And so we're texting each other, don't answer the door.
Yeah. You knew they were coming door to door.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. A good community should look out for each other like that.
Absolutely. And making sure that, so we were able to capture, video on a Ring doorbell.
Yes.
So technology, using it to the good that it is, and, alerting, we alerted a couple of people that I know in law enforcement to, hey, this is this person that's going around. I don't know if they're legit or not, but they're saying some things that don't add up. And so can you spread the word to at least keep an eye out for this individual? And so they were able to do that and help protect other people.
Right.
It's just scary because they're coming up to your door, and if you don't know them,
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of elderly people maybe are on a fixed income, Social Security. Talk about this all the time. So they don't a lot of older people don't have a lot of money to give. So if someone was to come up to their door and say, your bill is going up by 40%, you need to do this, do it now, act fast. That could scare somebody into making a decision like that, especially someone on a fixed income.
So a lot of our seniors actually are on the weatherization format for their billing. And so it basically is
keeps them at a
steady
level.
rate throughout the year. And so it kind of adjusts depending on their power usage. So it's more of a steady number each month, as opposed to, we get the high bills in the summer depending on what you're running. And then it goes down in the spring and fall. And then again in the winter it goes up. So theirs is more of a regular rate throughout the year. And so it used to be the circuit breaker is what it used to be called. And so they were on that so that they were able to keep that, bill a little bit more reasonable. And it's easier for them to budget their money whenever you know what to expect that bill to be.
Right. I think there are a lot of these cases going around right now. Can you share some statistics on cases that you have open, that kind of thing? Are you allowed to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I don't know.
The state of Illinois had over 20,000 cases of abuse, neglect, and exploitation in the fiscal year for 2023. Now, right now in the Southern 13 counties, I have over 200 open cases. I have, in the last fiscal year, 50 attorney general cases that we saw. Now, I know that there's more than that going on, and that's just, the little bit that is getting reported. So I know there's a lot more that's not getting reported.
There's got to be so much more.
There's, a fear of reporting it. People think that you're going to come in and rip them out of their home, or you're going to make them do all these things.
Or they feel stupid that they made a mistake, or that they're being
embarrassed.
Yes,
absolutely. Embarrassment is huge. I mean, we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. We've all fallen for, I've got a package that's getting delivered and it sends to your phone, and just don't click on weird things.
Yes, don't click a link.
We've all had those emails. It happens. But we don't judge anybody for being lonely. No. I mean, that's a human instinct of wanting to have companionship. And so we just want to be there to help them. And the easiest thing is just to make that call. And it's easy to do because we're local and we take those calls directly in-house. And if somebody doesn't want to call us directly, they can call the 800 number for the state. And so, those are two things that are imperative to do.
Yeah. So we'll leave both your contact information in the show notes for this, because I feel like it's so important to have a referral back to that.
I know. I'm going to put it in my phone forever. Okay. So you say you have there were 20,000 cases in 13 counties, or it's Illinois?
So the entire state
of Illinois. And you have 200 open cases right now?
In the Southern 13.
Okay. How do you prioritize or get to each case? Like, how does that work if someone turned my grandma in today?
So every case has a different priority level depending on the level of abuse that's being experienced.
Okay.
So depending on that, it's given a priority level, and that determines how quickly we go out and respond. Now, I will tell you this. We don't let them sit and wait, even if it is like the lowest level is a 3 and we have 7 days to go out and respond. We're typically out there within 4 days is our turnaround time frame. Sometimes we get them and we go right out on them, just depending on what your caseload is. A priority 2 has 72 hours, and then a priority 1 is 24 hours. And so, priority 1s are, typically more your physical abuse or something that has landed somebody in a hospital because of the abuse and neglect they've experienced. So we want to make sure that we get to those very quickly. And we have 24-hour coverage. We have on-call services. And so we receive those reports on the weekend. So if we get calls on the weekend, I have a staff member that will go out. There's myself and one other supervisor that will alternate weekends so that we are their backup and make sure that, they've got that support that they need. Yeah. So...
Well, that leads me to my next question. How can we identify if somebody is going through abuse?
So
or being defrauded?
Different things, like at the bank, like we talked about, looking at those accounts, seeing what's normal, what's not normal. Sometimes you see them come in to add somebody to an account and they seem nervous and they're not really sure. Being able to maybe pull them aside and talk to them. Is this what you want? Are you sure that you want to add this person to the account? Just because you have funds and somebody's preparing for your eventual death does not mean you have to add them to your account.
Right.
So there are things on the banking side that can be put in place so that, they don't have to add that individual to the account. And sometimes it's just an education piece that people don't understand, that you can make accounts payable upon death. You can have, this person is entitled to it, but they don't get it until you're no longer with us.
Yes.
And that is a huge protection. There are a lot of people that cannot wait to get their inheritance.
It's wild.
It's awful.
Yeah, it really is. But you said something like the POD, payable upon death. So your beneficiaries that you elect to your accounts. And those are changeable too. Like you can change power of attorney or whatever you said earlier. You can change your beneficiaries. So it doesn't have to stay the same, and you don't have to add a person to your account just because that's what they want access to your money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that helps us, because then if somebody starts taking your money and they're not on your account, it's a prosecutable offense.
Right.
So we can take that to law enforcement. If they are on that account, it is a civil matter. And so then you have to take it through civil court, because you cannot do a law enforcement report on that. And so knowing the legalities, as I stumble over that word, the legalities of every different scenario that we encounter is crucial to helping individuals. So knowing where we can get law enforcement's assistance, and they're crucial to some of our cases. They have assisted us in many cases and going out to see individuals. We are very grateful to our law enforcement community as they assist us through some of these cases.
Absolutely. What can the community do to help prevent the elderly individuals from fraud and abuse? Anybody
Can make a call. It doesn't have to be doctors or law enforcement. It doesn't have to be the mandated reporters. Anybody can call and make a report of concern. So if you see something or you suspect something, call us and let us know. There are a few details that we're going to ask for. We're going to ask probing questions on why you think this is happening or what have you seen, just so that we're able to be better prepared when we go out and lay eyes on that situation. We have to keep our staff safe as well. So we're asking probing questions as to what's going on and who's in the home, so that we're not blindsided that there's 10 individuals in the home, because we want to make sure we're going out prepared as well.
So good.
I'm sure you get, I would imagine, a lot of calls from banks, probably. Bankers calling you.
Yes.
I feel like I've been up in the teller line before, and like Macy's called, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I would never imagine working here thinking like these type of things happen. You just don't know until you work in a place.
It's not just banks, but credit card companies call us as well.
Really?
Yes, because they see, just as everyone else on those credit cards, these odd expenses that are being done that are out of the norm.
Okay, I would have never thought that. Go credit card companies. They're doing something good.
Yeah.
Yes. And then likewise, we're reaching out to the banks whenever we suspect fraud going on, because we need to get those financial records. And so sometimes if they are the reporting force, we're going to find out, okay, where's the best way if we need to get records? How do we get those? Because not every bank has the same policies and procedures on how to do that. So we have to educate ourselves as well on what's the line of command. How do we do that for each bank? Because every bank is different. Yes. And I will tell you this, the smaller local banks are amazing to work with. Some of those corporate type banks, they really put you through the ringer to get those records.
Well, and they don't know the customer as well.
Exactly.
I mean, they don't have that personal relationship. So they probably don't recognize fraud as easily as we can. When we see somebody that comes in and is doing something out of their normal behavior, we respond pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's huge, because the quicker we can stop it, the quicker we can prevent thousands and thousands of dollars that they don't have from being spent.
Right. So what resources are available for victims of elder fraud and their family?
So obviously we want to make the report to Shawnee Health. That's 618-985-8322. You're going to press option 1. That's going to get my 2 intake specialist or myself, depending on the day of the week that you call. We're going to take that report. We're going to figure out if it's something we can handle. If we can't handle it because it's outside of our scope and jurisdiction, then we're going to look at the situation and find out who else can help. And we're going to at least provide you with other information on who else you can go to. Our local Agency on Aging, because I screw that up every time.
That's a hard one
to say. Agency on Aging.
So EAAA in Carterville, they're amazing. So if you feel like I don't know, or hey, I have a connect there, you can contact them. I get emails throughout the night from some of them saying, hey, I got contacted by this individual. This is what's going on. And so we'll follow up on those things. So even if you are scared to make that report yourself, but you know someone else in the agencies, we're going to take that information from anybody that we can get it. Something that we have brought back to the area is the Southern Illinois Triad, and triads are senior citizens, senior services, and law enforcement working together to educate the community as to what scams are going on, what services are available, and bring that information out. And so we are really trying to get more law enforcement trained to be elder support officers, which gives them that opportunity to know different ways to communicate with seniors. You know that there are some that are extremely hard of hearing. Yeah. You don't like yelling at them. And so there's different ways that we can communicate. We have, whiteboards that we're able to talk to them with and write down those questions to where they're able to answer it, whether yes or no questions. We have devices called pocket talkers where they're able to hear it amplifies. It looks like a Walkman, and it just amplifies all the sound for them. And so sometimes those are devices that we're able to bring out and assist with, individuals that are in need. So we're really trying to raise awareness of what's going on so people can be protected, but also that they're getting the services that they need. Now, Shawnee Health also has the care coordination unit. And so that is where they will help with those applications for, do they need services for in-home services? We also have caregiver for dementia. We have a program for that. So if you are a caregiver caring for somebody with dementia, there are services available for you as a caregiver. So there's a lot of different services in the area. We work with the senior centers. We work with, all of the hospitals and the clinics, and we really try to be widespread in the different services because every case is so unique in what they need.
Right. What would you say to a family member of someone that is being defrauded or abused, but they don't want the help yet? What would you say to maybe support or encourage a family member and how they should act during this time?
Even though that individual may not want services yet, calling so that they know that we're out there, or even talking to them and saying, hey, there's people that are able to help with this, is an encouragement. Just because they don't want us that first time that we go out, unfortunately something else may happen and we'll get another call. But the earlier that we can get in and prevent it, the better. And so making that phone call is just that first crucial step to where they can get that assistance.
Do you have any, I know you do, I guess, I'd call it a win maybe, but like good stories you've seen from, I'm just going to start that over. That was a lot of words. I was going to say, can you give us any success stories through this program?
Oh my goodness. There are some that are just near and dear to our hearts. And so you just can't help but form relationships with people that you work with. Sometimes I worked with a lady for over 2 years. We had a couple of different investigations during that 2-year time frame. But, she was being abused by her son, and we were able to eventually get him evicted. And that was devastating in and of itself, because they fought the eviction and they didn't want, to be in the wrong, as they were. And, I went out there with her after that son was evicted, and her furniture had been burnt, and, we had law enforcement make sure that the home was cleared, and it was just awful. And I just stayed with her and helped her through a lot of that and processing, like, okay, this is what we really need. We have to get a game plan, and how do we get all of this cleaned up and get her services and get her some things to help her get back on her feet after having so much taken from her. Right. And then we have other cases where, they're able to be resolved fairly quickly. And those feel like really good wins because you're able to get in there and stop that abuse and get that person, whether it be assisting with an order of protection, and then you know that they're not going to be, violated, and help them with those things. So sometimes they're quick wins and getting them to where they get the help that they need. So
how rewarding. I mean, it's so hard to see some of the things you see, I'm sure, but how rewarding to see that you're able to help in that way. It's really honorable. I think what you guys are doing for the community is just so honorable. So
I have an amazing team.
Yeah.
Everybody that works for us in this field has a heart for this job. They may not come at it from the same approach, but they are all in it to care for these people. They have a heart for the work that they do. Mm-hmm. And that is what really, because we see some awful things, and that keeps them coming back every day. And just the team that we have in general, because we know that every day is not a great day. You don't meet people in this field that we go and see on the best day. And so that's something that they just have the heart that keeps them coming back for it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, obviously you're here on our podcast today educating us, but we were talking before the podcast about your education opportunities that you go out to businesses and do. So if you want to share some of that, so maybe some listeners can.
I have gone to different hospitals and done trainings at hospitals. I've gone to other banks and done trainings at banks, home care agencies, and trained them on what adult protective services can and cannot do. We are limited by, the law that guides us, because adults have the right to make decisions for themselves, good, bad, or indifferent. They have that right, if they're alert and oriented, to make that right, and make those choices. So anybody that wants to have a training set up, I will gladly go and do a training and talk about this. It needs to be talked about, as hard as it is, but we want to educate as many people as we can, because we want people protected and we want those calls made so that we're able to help as many people as we can.
Mm-hmm. Great. Is there any last thought or any last thing you'd like our listeners to know?
Just know that, you don't have to provide your contact information. We want to follow up with anybody that makes a report, but you don't have to provide that. You can be anonymous, and just to make sure that you call that stuff in, because if you suspect something's going on, there's probably other people that suspect it too, but they're not going to make that call. So just have the courage to make that call and let us come out and try to help. I mean, we're not going to be able to fix every situation that gets called in, and that is very frustrating for callers. It's frustrating for us too, but we are there to help, and we'll do what the client wants.
Amazing. And you said your number a few times. Will you say your phone number, your contact information one more time? And we'll include in the show notes, but just one more time. So
the local number is 618-985-8322. And the 800 number is 1-866-800-1409.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, for being on today. I feel
I feel like I learned a lot. I'm like ready to go stop abuse and fraud out in the world. So,
well, thanks again for being on, and we'll see you next week.
So, Jill, where do we go from here?
Be sure to check out our show notes for this episode, and also be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.